the best way to test on Facebook at the moment, spending more than 10 million per month across multiple accounts. This is exactly what I see brands doing the best at how they A, facilitate creative learnings, they B, more efficient, and also scaling their account in the business. For obviously anyone new to the channel, I'm Harry. I've been a growth strategist for D2C brands for over 8 years, and now what I do basically is I help brands scale through paid media strategy, creative, by also helping on creative direction, creative briefs, and creative production as well. So if you're a D2C brand or someone who wants to get in contact with me, click the link below and we can obviously have a chat. But without further ado, is actually get to the video. I'm gonna see exactly what's working and how I developed my own kind of, how things has evolved, because I was really focused on ABO and testing with ABO, which I really think ABO and the CBO is not a question. It's really like what exactly you're trying to do within Meta at the moment. What is your goal? Where is your business overall in terms of its own kind of journey for growth? And usually ABO is obviously less risky because obviously we can distribute spend across different ad sets. We have control across different ad sets and the budget there. So we have a less risky scenario, because usually CBO, what used to happen, it was Meta where people would most of the spend into one ad set, maybe like a couple of ads. So it was very hard to dethrone those ads with any new test that we brought into the mix, but also this caused a lot more fluctuation in the overall performance. So I'm gonna propose something here which I have been testing quite a lot recently, and it has really been the key thing that I've changed on my testing, which has been doing quite well, and now tested obviously quite thoroughly. So and we're also gonna be talking about how to navigate Meta pivoting most of the spend into those existing ads or existing ads, how you need to think about creative testing overall. So the first thing to understand here is I like to still set up my testing campaign using a CBO. This usually has 20 to 40% of the total budget of the account, and this obviously depending on how much we want to flex that creative testing campaign. For example, now that we have the full Q4, I like to test as much as possible so we can gain as much insight and creative data and creative learning, so we can, from a production point of view, focus on these key themes of the next kind of few months before diving into the peak period. Now, the really important thing here to understand is the minimum spend. This is what changes everything. This is what I've been doing, and this is actually doing very well across accounts. So what changes with the minimum spend is we can essentially turn the CBO into an ABO, but on steroids, because we use basically the best of kind of both worlds. With this setup, we have majority of the spend being distributed by Meta, so maybe like 60%. Obviously, this is up to you to kind of also control. We're controlling the budget on the ad sets that do work. So we give enough, obviously, spend to the new ad sets, the new batches, so we can still facilitate that creative learning, but also we're still holding a lot of control into what's winning. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the budget behind what's working. You obviously leave Meta with maybe like, again, 40% of the budget, maybe even like 60% of the budget into distributing across any of those ad sets, whether it kind of sees performance. And that's exactly what happens here. So what we do here is obviously we test with minimum spends, and the big strategy has volume. Again, it can be highest value if you maybe have a multi-product business. Usually even then it's highest volume. Highest value is a bit of in a kind of experimental phase. I haven't seen them being the default setting in pretty much any account, but we'll leave that up to you, and for your testing to see better performance, feel free to do this. So what do we have here? We have weekly new batches coming for creatives. Again, if you want to learn more about creative production, how you can get those high production and high converting ads into your account weekly, click the link below. Let's have a quick chat here. And then essentially what we're going to do is we're going to introduce enough creative volume weekly with new batches. Those new batches, obviously this is for another video, how these are being informed. And we're also going to be excluding customers. And by customers, I mean Pixel purchases and Klaviyo customers. It's actually a new feature now that you can really push Meta to target new people. Is basically an option here which is called customer lifecycle option, which is very interesting as well. And then we now can be testing that. And obviously, let's say we have batch 1 here, batch 2, batch 3. Obviously, we have 4 ads. Usually, I don't have 4 ads, is obviously, so I don't take too much of the board here. I have a minimum of 5 all the way up to like 30, to be honest, most of the time, depending on like the concept that I'm testing. And each batch is also very important. And maybe this is on my end a mistake here, because usually I don't like to test on batches on the regular sense of like, we have a new batch of creative, let's actually launch it. It's also like going around concept testing. So we have, for example, for this week, maybe iterating on an existing concept, or we want to dive deeper on an existing concept, or we want to launch a brand new concept as well. Now, let's look at these 4 batches / ad sets here. Now, what will happen is when we basically, usually, again, most of the spend is going to be on maybe a couple of those batches, depending on the budget as well. With batch 3 and batch 4, maybe getting like 30% roughly, and this batch 10 get like 60%. And this is fine. Like obviously, we can see efficiency is good, so we're going to still kind of focus on. Now, we're going to go over crucial for testing in a second. I want to dive into what happens from a creative testing perspective when we introduce a new batch or a new ad set, and this is exactly how we test. For the new ad set, which is again similar to what I mentioned above, we're going to apply 15 to 25% of the budget as minimum spend. So we're going to basically say to Meta, I don't care about the whole budget. I just want to make sure 15% of that budget or whatever is going to be, without a doubt, every single day distributed into that new ad set. And this is how we solve the issue of Meta pivoting all overspending to the existing ad sets due to performance. It's how we control the spend, but also give Meta the leeway to distribute across the other ad sets budget efficiently, so we can still obviously lean on that machine learning. So what that does essentially, again, we signal Meta to control the budget and kind of spending budget. How you can do this is very easily. There is an option to add a minimum spend or minimum percentage of the total value. I like to have a minimum kind of spend just to make sure I hit that specific kind of dollar amount. Is really the same thing, to be honest. And again, what happens after that, and we are going to cover a few other things here on that, is very interesting. Again, we're going to have, let's say, 4 ads. This can be 10, 20. It's just an example. Usually, you will see after like day 3 that one ad is getting all the spend, and is actually, this is the other way around. This is like that. Maybe this one is green. So you will see the first ad getting all the spend usually is less efficient. And this is again for another video that I've done. Is called ad sequencing. This is something obviously Meta relatively new introduced as well. And this is called ad sequencing. Basically, Meta in every scenario on an ad set level, it will sequence the ad. And it was actually, I think, an old study that Meta did, which basically the probability of like purchasing after seeing the same ad more than 2 to 3 times each time. So what it does basically try to kind of refreshes the impression behind a specific person by distributing and sequencing other ads of that ad set. So the first ad is always going to be the most scalable, at least to Meta. It's obviously going to have the best possible times for scaling. That's why usually it has the most spend and sees Meta as the main driver of that ad set. So it is a lot of usually more top of funnel. And the other ads below, either are very strong, they are efficiency gainers, or they don't have any spend whatsoever. So the ideal scenario is, and going back to testing, if we want to be very, very conservative, we want to set the budget at like 1 to 2 times the CPA. So we have like a $50 CPA target. We want to at least do $50 per day behind each ad set. Now, I don't even like the one time, because it's very hard for Meta to properly learn. And usually, and again, the main thing to comprehend here is like you can start testing very low spend, but to get statistical significance on any of those ad sets, you probably want to wait like maybe a month almost. So we always want to lean and be more on the kind of upper end, so we get the data faster. So what that means is that I'm aiming at 3 to 5 the AOV, and it's usually for 7 to 14 days. And the reason for that is not just because Meta is suggesting let's run it for 7 days. is obviously you will see the performance fluctuating on different days of your business, right? So you want to give it a fair chance. Now, if one ad is getting a lot of spend and is obviously not delivering anywhere close to the target, of course, we're going to pause it after maybe the 4 to 5 day mark. But overall, I want to at least try to go as close to the 7 day mark and sometimes 14 days before pausing the whole ad set overall. And then what we do after that is obviously we promote this into a scaling campaign, which recently has been through a cost cap. And usually that CBO testing is also a bit of a scaling environment, because you obviously get it just because Meta has a lot of ad sets that are winning, and also we introduce new ad sets as well, is a very kind of refresh campaign, and it's usually a consistent campaign, and with most of the spend being behind winners. So we like to test this as well. We like to scale this as well vertically. Scaling campaign is going to be cost cap. We want to try to kind of squeeze as much as possible. It's a bit harder to scale through cost caps, but we try to obviously extend the spend that we can push through a few assets. Now, a few things to kind of keep in mind here with this setup. I think this is the best way to contest at the moment. Now, how you should approach testing, I really want to propose, like, obviously one of the most common questions that I get from clients is, we allocate so much effort into producing assets for Meta not to even spend on them. And we need to really be confident and kind of comfortable with that notion that Meta always knows better than us, has obviously a lot more data than us, and in some of the recent changes that they made on the model, they have even more context that we do have. Andromeda basically is a model that basically gives Meta the ability to process a lot more data and have a lot more context, essentially, of all of the people who are on the different platforms. So that gives obviously the notion that there is one specific ideal ad or perfect ad for each person. So the bottleneck here is not if Meta can actually find the audience, it's like, are we able to supply it with enough creative and the right type of creative to find that specific person? So we really want to have this on the back of our minds and really push Meta to have the kind of main word in terms of distributing spends and picking performance. Now, having said that, there's a few occasions when we pause our first maybe couple of ads that Meta in theory thought they were the best, we see better performance, but this is very, very unlikely, and I just don't want it to be the kind of BAU process here. Now, the number two on how you should test, you should set minimum spends to control learnings and the creative feedback loop. The most important thing as you scale is you need to extract the meaningful learnings that you need to extract from every single ad set that you're testing, every single batch that you're testing, and the concepts that you're testing. So we need to control the budget. There's no question about that. We need to give them spent, but that doesn't mean that out of the 20 assets, every single one of them get ads, will get budget. Usually maybe like 3 to 5 ads that get the spent, and usually a couple that actually get all the spent, and this is completely fine. Now, the number 3 here, which I haven't put actually here, but just crossed my mind at the moment, is make sure we having a specific creative testing process and research process to come up with new concepts, dive deeper on those winning concepts, diversify the concepts. And if you want a more dedicated video on that, which I've done, you're going to see the link here, which goes a bit more in depth into the overall creative strategy, how you can structure it. But I hope that really helped you out in terms of how you should be testing, how I think is the best way to have the control between Meta being the main force and also being efficient and make sure we hit out on business goals. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, obviously please subscribe and have a look at the link below. I'm gonna link the kind of board here as well, so you have an idea. And also there's a few options to work with me directly or on a more kind of educational kind of way, or in a more kind of consulting way as well. So thanks for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.